9 being 7 o'clock. It's time for the meeting. Council meeting. Benton City. Can I get a call to order, roll call, please?
Elwick.
Here.
Vesenius.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Parmenter.
Here.
Raker. Stark Mahood.
Here.
All right, all rise up and say the pledge of allegiance, please.
Recording in progress.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We got a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion.
Motion by Riley, second by Tammy. All those in favor?
Aye.
I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Riley, second by Andrew. Anybody got any questions, comments, concerns? Page 1, Schmieke Excavating. I thought that was like $25,000 she was going to do that for.
No, it was more than that. For the whole bid was 35,000.
Okay, I remember that 25 stuff in my head. Page 2, the retention credit due to COVID-19 paid back to the United States Treasury.
Yes, so, prior staff filed for retention credit on their 941 for the second quarter of the year. A year ago, we found out that we got a letter from the IRS that we were not eligible for that credit, needed to repay. We said, in the last week, they sent another letter confirming we do need to pay. It's correct. Doug and his staff looked it over. The amount we owe.
Governmental entities were not eligible for that credit, but keeping in mind how many things were going on during COVID, and rules were getting made and decisions getting made, sometimes it looked like the facts or the policies meant one thing, and then you learn a few months later they meant another thing. That appears to be what happened here. So the amount proposed to be paid tonight is the underlying tax actually due that the city took the credit for. The government is asking for interest and penalties as well, and we're asking them nicely to give us a break. So while they're thinking about that, we need to pay the underlying amount to avoid some additional interest and penalties. So and there's really no way around that. The guidance documents that came out after that exemption, that credit was made an option. Very clear that governmental entities are not eligible. It was just a timing thing, a misunderstanding, whatever you want to call it. But yeah.
Okay. These are a compilation of things. We need to look at the fairground billing, Chris. It needs an explanation. We got $17,000 on the bridge or something like that. 25 on a lift station design and construction. We got $75,000 on the water treatment plant. 23,000 on booster stations. So I'd like to get some accountability on how they're getting billed and what he's billing for.
Okay.
Did we ever get anything back on?
I was going to have him come to this meeting, but
I don't need him to come to the meeting because all he's going to do is bill us first time. I just need a written explanation of what's going on.
okay,
So,
we'll do.
and that falls back to all those West First Street bills as well. I think when Melissa and I had them up, we've been billed $17,000 plus since the project was formally closed out. I don't quite understand that. And that's all I had, I think. Anybody else?
I just have a general question. For the rec center and the skating rink, bi-weekly rug cleaning, is that for like entryway rugs or carpeting?
Entryway rugs.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, time to receive and file communication petitions for motions. Nada?
I don't have one in writing, but I did have a citizen, bring up, they would like us to look into potentially getting a blinking light at the crosswalk between the, I wanna say it's the Bascom addition across, what is the high road called?
You're
County
talking
Home
home.
Road?
Yeah,
By
Yeah.
Trinity?
yes. So for kids to cross, like a light, because people whip through there and are going faster than they should be, and there's kids that live there that would like to walk to school, but they don't feel safe letting their children cross that road. So
Talking about
just-
10th Avenue,
Yeah. Just a thought.
public safety.
I'm kind of leaning that way. Mr. Senius, you want to set up a meeting?
No, it's Mr. Elwick.
Oh, no.
Public safety
Your
is Mr.
safety.
Senius.
Yeah, it is me. All right. When do you want to do
If
it?
you want me to read
please?
that, that'd be Ron Senius be the chair.
Yes.
And Wes would be.
Yes, bud. I looked at Public Works.
You can
When would
arrange
you
that.
like to do that? Before the next meeting?
General government's gonna meet before the next meeting.
You can meet before us though,
Well, we can do that. What time are they meeting?
6:30.
Okay, we can meet at 6. I think everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yep.
So,
Been brought up before.
Perfect. Anything else? All right, moving on to committee reports. We've had any meetings?
no.
Lovely, moving on to citizen input. Council won't take any action on public comments this meeting, but may do so in a future meeting. Anybody? Nobody out there?
Nope, nobody's around.
All right, moving on to old business, of which there is none. Moving on to new business. Item A, now I need motion approval requesting the Iowa Pyrotechnics Association for financial contribution to Boomtown event.
That would be me.
Step right up,
Yes,
state who you are, where you're from, and,
I'm Dan Marvetts. I'm actually from Hiawatha, Iowa, but I am the.
Second.
oh, I need a motion.
Sorry.
Now you're good.
Sorry.
Did you get that? Sorry.
I'm good.
Anyway, I'm the president of the Iowa Pyrotechnics Association now, so we're gearing up already for all the stuff for Boomtown, as everybody knows. So, the one thing that has affected us a little bit this year has been the tariff thing, because most of the fireworks obviously come from China. We've been trying to get to some of the other sponsors that we have ahead of time, because we have some of our suppliers that have stuff that isn't tariffed. So we're trying to buy that to try to keep the cost down of all the rest of this. So I know in the past we've gotten $6,000 from the city to do this. So I'm asking for whatever we can get to try to do it this year. So I start negotiations at 10 and go from there and see where we land, I guess.
Well, super, we can discuss it in one of the next meetings, see if we can get some sort of resolution. We just can't decide it tonight,
Absolutely.
so, but we appreciate all you do.
Absolutely.
So,
Alright.
just so I know, Chuck was the president before, and now you've taken over, or is this all different?
How would you like me to explain that? Chuck was the president. Chuck was voted out of president. Then Ray Garris took over. Ray Garris decided to step down because he didn't feel he was competent enough to take over the position. And I moved from treasurer to second VP to VP to president in about 11 months.
Chuck wasn't president last year.
No, nope. I was vice president last year, and I was the one that put it together because Ray wasn't capable of doing so.
You make a lot more money being president, so.
Oh yeah, the pay's fabulous. Yeah.
Super,
All right.
appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
All right. Now I need a motion, motion for approval of special event application for the Chalktown Green Mental Health Awareness.
Motion.
Motion by Tammy, seconded by Zach. I think that was.
You want me to speak to this?
Sure.
Okay. Next Thursday night, they would like to have an event on the surrounding sidewalks at the courthouse. And it's probably not gonna be a big deal, we're just gonna do some stuff on there. And it's for mental health awareness. My wife is part of that, so try to get her to come, but she's fine with me. And the county is okay with doing that around the courthouse because the sidewalk is actually ours. You can't go up the sidewalks, but
That's lovely.
It's just chalk and it's not even closing down the street.
right,
Correct.
right. And they don't know how big a turnout they're gonna have or anything, and it's not gonna be they don't need restrooms or anything like that, so.
Alright.
All right, anybody got any problem with that?
I don't.
Chief? None? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, now it's time to set a date for public hearing on proposed contract documents, estimated cost for improvements to East Third Street sanitary sewer project. This is not be the next meeting.
That would be next meeting, Mr. Mayor.
Second?
May 22nd.
I don't know, somebody steal that?
Somebody stole May.
Somebody took that already. Yep. Saturday, May 22nd, 7 p.m. Date has so been set. All right, now moving on to item D. We're gonna have a presentation regarding delinquent account collection, due process hearing, and damage complaint. I assume that's what you're all here for.
That is me, yes, that is us.
You guys wanna step up and let us know who you are, where you live?
While they're coming up, just to note to the council, this, I got you a little memo on this topic today. Sorry to get to you sooner. Melissa and I have been communicating with these folks about it. The very long and short of it is that they'll go into there was a delinquent water account. Service was disconnected, and the notice failed to give the tenant, in this case, notice of the right to appeal or to a hearing before the council. Water was off for about 24 hours, turned back on, a new notice provided. And that's kind of the beginning of this, this situation, so that's what they're here to talk about.
Thank you all. My name is Maureen Slatt. I'm an attorney at Iowa Legal Aid. I am not living in Vinton. I'm representing Shantae Ort, who currently lives in Vinton. Do you want to just give your address?
Yeah, it's 1601 West First Street, apartment 3.
And I have a proposal to share with the city. I'd like to give you a little bit of information about the law underlying this topic and about what actually happened here. I will try to be brief, and I apologize if I'm not as brief as you would like. Ms. Ort has paid the city of Vinton approximately $1,165 for utilities in 2025 alone. She has concerns that her online and mailed statements are not matching. She also has concerns that the metering of her unit is improper and that there's an issue with the meter. She's had discussions with having the city come out to look at the meter. That has not been done. However, I'm here today because there's been an unlawful deprivation of Ms. Ort's 14th Amendment rights under 42 USC section 1983 and a wrongful termination of her utility services under Iowa law. Specifically, Ms. Ort is entitled to a pre-disconnection hearing under Iowa law. A municipal utility in Iowa cannot terminate its service at will. It can only terminate for delinquent balances owed and only with prior notice given to the tenant that the customer, that they have a right to contest the termination at a pre-disconnection hearing. Now it's undisputed, I believe in this case, that Ms. Ort's water was disconnected on Thursday, March 27th, and she had not received the required notice under Iowa law, or as is required under the 14th Amendment or the Due Process Clause of the United States Constitution. Under the 14th Amendment, that's the Due Process Clause, there's a requirement for some opportunity of some kind for a hearing prior to the deprivation of a significant property interest. There's a United States Supreme Court opinion that is Memphis Light, Gas, and Water Division v. Kraft, 436 U.S. 1, and that's a 1978 case that essentially says a final notice contained in municipal utilities bills stating that payment was overdue and service would be discontinued if payment was not made by a certain date, was not reasonably calculated to inform the customers of the availability of procedures for protesting proposed termination of utility services as unjustified. And thus, the customers were deprived of their due process rights under the U.S. Constitution. That case is directly on point in this matter, unfortunately. So she received a notice. It did not tell her about her pre-disconnection hearing right. It did not tell her what the procedures available were for her protesting the disputed amounts. The city of Vinton provides, as you know better than I do, gas, sewer, electric, and water. So it's municipal
We
utility.
do not provide the actual gas.
Okay, so I'll just keep it shorter. The city of Vinton provides water, which is what's at issue in this case. So it's a municipal utility. On or around March 24th, 2025, the city posted a notice to Shasta Ford's door, letting her know that the water would be disconnected if payment was in full was not made by March 26th of 2025. The notice, as I have said already, failed to inform her of her right to a pre-disconnection hearing, and that's required under Iowa Code 384.84 subsection 3, subsection C, and it's also her due under the due process clause. Just to give you a little context for what happened here, so the landlord and the municipal utility came to her house. Her water can only be shut off from inside her unit. She said, she's not comfortable with them coming in. She didn't allow them to come in. They came back with the police, and the police actually entered with the municipal utility to turn off her water. During that interaction, a police officer threatened to kill her dog, who is her ESA animal, if her dog did not stop barking. Ms. Ort's water was disconnected for roughly 24 hours. And during that time, she didn't have access to any running water, so she couldn't bathe, she couldn't shower, she couldn't get any glass of water from the sink, she couldn't water her dog. She is a child who suffers from disabilities and needs breathing treatments regularly that requires water. She could not provide those treatments, and she missed out on time with her child because of that. She was placed in a state of profound stress and inconvenience. She had to spend a lot of time talking to me, trying to figure out what's going on with the city, trying to get her water back on. I contacted your attorney, Mr. Herman, and we were able to come to agreement that the notice was improper. Water was turned back on about 24 hours later. At that time, so water was turned off Thursday afternoon, turned back on Friday afternoon. When it was turned back on, they came back into the unit again to turn the water back on. They handed her a new notice and said, hey, you have a right to pre-disconnection hearing. Oh, and by the way, you have to have that hearing requested, and at the time you request it, you're simultaneously going to have the hearing, and it has to be Monday before noon. I represent Ms. Ort. I was out of the office Friday afternoon. Extra stress. Now, there's nothing in the statute saying they have to give the notice of pre-disconnection a certain amount of time before they have the pre-disconnection hearing. So I'm not disputing that that was unlawful. However, the law does state that it has to be mailed by ordinary mail to the customer. And her mail, Ms. Ort's mail, comes in the afternoon. So there's no way that she would have been mailed that new notice with the proper notice of pre-disconnection hearing before she was required to have the pre-disconnection hearing. So she wasn't given proper notice again a second time. Now luckily, I think for everyone involved, she ended up having that pre-disconnection hearing and making a payment, so she didn't have another unlawful disconnection, or we'd have two we're talking about, but we're just talking about the one that happened. Now why does this all matter, right? Her water's turned back on. It's an awful 24 hours, but water's turned back on. I talked to the attorney. He's gonna have a new notice that gives proper notice to the customer of pre-disconnection hearing. I understand that none of you are personally responsible for water being turned off. But regardless, I just would like each of you, as we sit here tonight, to imagine a situation in which your legal rights are violated. You're entitled to some kind of notice. You don't get that notice. You know, the city, the government itself, and the police come in and turn off your water. You leave here tonight and you can't use the toilet, you can't shower, you can't brush your teeth, you can't water your dog, you can't provide water for your children, you can't boil pasta for your kids' dinner. You know, you spend the next 24 hours trying to figure out how to get water. Maybe you go down to the gas station every time you have to go to the bathroom. Maybe you send your kids somewhere else because you can't, you know, provide them water, which is an essential utility. Maybe you're forced to go to work the next day without having showered or bathed, or go to some other commitment without having had a shower or a bath, or having brushed your teeth properly. You're forced to engage with an attorney, to spend time away from work and other obligations trying to deal with the situation. And then after you get an attorney involved, you know, the attorney is able to talk with the city's attorney, the entity's attorney responsible for this, and there's an admission that yes, notice wasn't properly given. And by the way, here's a new notice. That's not quite right, but it almost complies with the law. And we're gonna turn off your water again by Monday. You know, what she got was her water back on, which is great. And essentially a whoops and a callous new notice from the city. I think it's safe to say that any of us in that situation would be aggrieved, that there would be some level of frustration and suffering involved there, even for something as short as 24 hours. Just not being able to use the toilet for 24 hours is a significant damage. You know, Ms. Ort's constitutional rights have been violated. Her state rights, her legal rights under state law have been violated. And she has remedies under both state law and constitutional law. In fact, she has the right to sue for the wrongful termination of her municipal utility service. She can sue for actual damages, including emotional distress, pain and suffering, any gas she spent having to go elsewhere to get bottled water, any money she spent on bottled water. She can sue for, you know, if she had to have an increase in her medication because of this, or an increased therapy bill, something like that. But she can also sue under the 14th Amendment, the violation for the 14th Amendment for not only her actual damages, but also punitive damages, which are designed to punish for reckless disregard of rights. She can sue for attorney's fees under the violation for the 14th Amendment, and court costs. So Iowa Legal Aid, which is the firm I'm part of, we don't charge our clients for legal services. We offer them free of charge. However, there's an Iowa court case that recently found that Iowa Legal Aid is allowed to request and be awarded market rate attorney's fees in cases they bring. So the average market rate right now for attorney's fees is roughly $254 per hour. That could vary based on the attorney's experience, number of years they've been practicing, but $254 per hour for attorney's fees, and I would suggest to you that a case of this nature would probably take about 100 hours. There's also a recent Iowa District Court case, Loretta Hannum v. Jacob Mathis. The case number is CVEQ 112653. That's a March 29th, 2021 decision out of Wapello County, in which the district court case found that the valuation of $300 a day was an appropriate damages number for having your water shut off. And that's just for the lack of running water. That's not attorney's fees, that's not cost, that's not pain and suffering. That's just your water was off for 24 hours. So, you know, as a summary, I've outlined what happened here. I've outlined the law. I believe that the city is liable under both Iowa law and constitutional law for the deprivation of her rights. On behalf of Ms. Ort, I don't think this needs to go to litigation. I don't think that it necessarily behooves either party to spend a bunch of time and money in litigation. I propose that, you know, the city agree or that some kind of settlement be met, and my proposal would be that Ms. Ort's current bill, which I believe is about $585, be zeroed out in exchange for a complete waiver of Ms. Ort's claims against the municipal utility related to the unlawful termination of her municipal utility service. If the city declines this offer, she retains all rights to sue the city for the unlawful events related to her water shutoff. And I am happy to take any questions. I do appreciate all of your guys' time and listening to my legal jargon. That's all I have.
So, since you brought up all these legal terms, I
Yes.
will caution the council not to ask anything. Everything will have to go through our attorney.
Well,
So-
I would say it's on the agenda tonight for them, for this presentation to occur, so you have an understanding of their position, where they're coming from, what they're requesting. If you had any, what I'll call factual questions, if you didn't understand any kind of the background, you could ask. When it gets into the legal arguments and the potential liabilities and whatnot, that would be something for us to discuss, not in the public arena, so,
But that's also why we hired you.
There you go.
yeah.
You
So
can,
at
you
your,
can spew off any case number,
Yeah,
and I don't know anything.
I sent it to him already,
At-
so
at
nobody
less,
has
at
it.
less
Like I
than the
said, you
market
can
rate.
just say
to be
numbers
fair.
and,
I know it's recorded and all of that, so I didn't know if you wanted me to have it for
Yeah,
future
that,
reference or anything
that
like that.
particular case, for reference, is just one district court in Iowa, and it was, you know, it's, that case, to me, the big difference between that case and our case, that was a landlord getting sued, I believe, for some very intentional wrongdoing, what I'd call landlord self-help. Wanting to get rid of a tenant and thinking, I don't want to go through the eviction, so I'm just going to start turning off your utilities and changing the locks on your door, and definitely some intentional wrongdoing there. You know, from the facts that have been presented tonight, I would say, I don't disagree that the notice that the city was using was not adequate. And we remedied that as, you know, as quick as I learned of it, we remedied that and moved on the road. So that fact is a true fact. But I would say, for the council, you know, based on, you've heard all this tonight, if you want to put this on the agenda for the next meeting for a short closed session, I can phone in or participate in some fashion and talk about the proposal and take action after.
that is what we'll do.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Each person,
Thank you.
or your satchel, or carry-on luggage, whatever that is.
Large bag.
All right. Well, that takes right into reports, Chris.
Okay. Oh, report to busy, but I have a planning and zoning meeting scheduled for May 20th to talk about the proposal from Coops Automotive and also the downtown parking issue. Also been invited to speak at the Lions Club on May 14th, and there's an airport commission meeting on May 14th. I'm planning on attending, and I believe there was a pre-construction meeting this week for the Bud's Lift Station project, and it looks like that Pierre Tobin will be moving in and actually getting started on it on June 2nd, and looks like the project completion date is going to be August 22nd. And I left in front of you, Mayor, their actual schedule for this project.
Is the camper gonna be out of there by then?
Yes, I will actually go and talk to Todd.
I keep looking down the street and it's still there. So.
Yeah, it's still there, so I'll talk to Todd this weekend. I'll just go down the road. Yeah, I know.
Word is.
But that's what I have for now. Mr. Mayor, Council.
Okay, so the only thing I got a problem with their schedule is they're way outside the seating windows.
Okay,
They can't see in the middle of July.
correct.
They can, but
It won't hold.
they'll have to water it and all that other good stuff until it gets into the seating window.
I think that was part of the easement agreement, wasn't it, with the two neighbors that
They're supposed to water it.
they
Well,
would
after
water?
Steve was gonna water it
All right.
himself.
Yes.
Somehow for water.
We We had installed.
We're gonna put,
Meter.
yeah, we're gonna put a meter on the outside faucet.
I will talk to Todd this weekend.
Right.
And that's all I have.
Lovely. Chief,
Nothing to add. We're plugging along, waiting for our new budget to come in.
that's it?
That's it.
Wow, what's
I'll,
up?
I'll share some stuff after the meeting's done.
What's it?
Our new website's live. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. Happy
I
with
like
it.
the search function. That's very helpful.
It was definitely
I
time.
was happy with it.
Good.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, Ron.
Yeah, for me it is.
Been busy with electric and telecom, some new policies and procedures. They're going to be moving into their new building, Ivinton is, in a week and a half into their new office space, so that's exciting. I went to my first Northeast Iowa Regional League of Cities meeting the other week in West Union. Just folks sitting around talking about problems, how we work through them. So that was nice to be invited to. They meet quarterly. Otherwise, just the usual. Nothing wild.
Nothing?
No.
Perfect. I actually don't have much either. Go out and look at the culvert, that looked good. Other thing from discussing the closed session, that I noticed and found, so.
I did. Can I say something? I went out to the sewage treatment plant today, and the floor drains in one of the buildings out there are down like that in the poly room. And I'm trying to figure out why they're that low, because that floor is slippery. They're going to be slippery.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
I'll ask her.
Yeah, 'cause
I don't expect an answer tonight, but.
no, but, I mean, usually in a situation like that, cause Sean was talking, they're gonna have to put extruded grating over it or something, so people don't slide and slip and slide and fall in there.
Polymer being
Yeah.
injected into it
Right,
after the press and then polymer being added.
right.
That's gonna be real smooth.
They
Yeah,
said-
which one? Which room? Is it the
Press.
polymer room?
Yeah,
Polymer.
yeah,
Where the screw press is?
yeah.
Yeah.
And evidently, the concrete company said that's what they were supposed to set him at. And I asked the question, I said, well, usually when I did floor drains in a building, I asked where the concrete was gonna end up, and that's what they were told. And they ended up that far below. So they may have to cut the concrete out to raise the floor drains. thing I did, they had a problem, they've been having problems with the, UV cabinet, which that air conditioner we put in last year took care of it all year last year, but during the summer, but now it's starting to give a problem. But it's been evidently 9 or 10 years since that went in, so those breakers are getting weak in there. So I took it upon myself to direct Craig to get new breakers because they're probably getting weak. Sean has switched them around and stuff like that, and it's still not doing it. He was talking about running a duct off that air conditioner, and I still don't think that's gonna take care of it, so.
Breaker should be the cheapest route right now.
So they're like
Yeah.
$55 a piece,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna get like 3 or 4 of them, so.
Let's see if that works.
with that.
Lovely. Anything else? Good welfare? Zach found all the mushrooms, I heard.
They're not done anything to me yet.
Not all of them.
Found a few. You're gonna dry up fast though.
Yes, sir.
Grass is getting pretty high now.
They'll be done here.
Chris, where's my
Another
mushrooms?
weekend.
I haven't seen anything on the tree yet. It hasn't got super hot yet. Don't worry. Once they come,
I've
I'll
only
let you know.
I've only seen one cluster of oysters
Oh, really?
so far.
Wow.
They're gonna
I
come.
actually found a dried up patch.
Did you?
I was kind of surprised. It must have been last year's.
Yeah, I've had dried up patches as well. So don't worry, Ron. As soon as they come in, I'll give you a call.
Thank you, because I know Ted's not gonna go get them, so.
I already talked to him about it.
You didn't go last year.
I did.
No, you didn't.
Did I go
One time you went,
Oh,
you came
one
with the
time.
bag. It just seems like it's just consistent in my
Anyway.
All right. Now, we're gonna be moving into closed session as permitted by Iowa Code Section 21, Parent 1, Parent C, to discuss strategy with counsel on matters that are presently in litigation, or where litigation is imminent, where its disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the governmental body in that litigation. I'll get a motion to move into closed session.
Second.
Motion by Zach, second by Riley. Can I get a roll call, please?
Elwick,
Yes.
Basinius,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Parmenter,
Yes.
Raker,
Yes.
Stark Mahood.
Yes.
Perfect. So we'll take a few minutes to vacate the premises.